Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM from the Gulf Coast, 107.7 FM from beautiful New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey for the last several years. So thank you, Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, a.k.a. Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, for the contribution of his music, his time, and his voice for the intro you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite music streaming platforms. Also, big thank you to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind our logos here at the Outer Realm. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the Halloween and horror genre, but does amazing commission pieces of any type. So tonight's very exciting for me and for all of you guys who've been asking for this. I do listen. I do listen. So tonight we welcome Darrell Denton. The Tennessee Bigfoot man is going to be joining me to discuss his research, his experiences with Bigfoot and Dogman, just in general, but especially within the land between the lakes, which has an aggressive history of encounters out there from both of these cryptids. And you guys have just been, I don't know, it's like, what do you know that maybe I don't know? Because I mean, it's not like I don't know about this, but there's been a lot of requests for this. So a little bit about Darrell, of course, like I said, Tennessee Bigfoot man had his first terrifying encounter while deer hunting in November 1992, which changed his life forever. He had a second encounter in 1999 while fishing, and that family of forest people became his friends. See, I can't wait to hear about that experience. He's had many encounters since with these creatures and with the dog man. Mainly researches in the land between the lakes, now with his team, Martin Groves, Barton Nunley, and now Ron Moorhead, which we all know and love because he's been on the show, 2 or 3 times, and just a heck of a guy, very versed. Anyway, Darrell is the founder of the Facebook group page called Bigfoot Believers and Other Creatures. Has been a guest on many podcasts, radio shows, documentaries, as well as a speaker at many conventions, and currently writing his first book. So that's the book. We have to come back when he's done that book besides that. So I have a feeling we're going to be seeing more of Darrell. Without further ado, everybody, Darrell Denton, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Oh, the honor is mine. Believe me. I've got people right now going, thank you for doing this. So it's like, I know. Wow. I mean, where do you start? I mean, you've been doing this. Obviously, you've had experiences very early on. Obviously, good experiences for the most part, not overly terrifying. I have to say, if you were ready to jump in with both feet, and you're still doing it all these years later. So how about humble beginnings?
Well, it was pretty terrifying, my first encounter. I'd hunted on my grandfather's land all my life, and he had a rural farm, and he had rural farms all around him that belonged to his friends, and nobody hunted there but me and my friends. It was basically so far out, nobody went out there. But it was in rural Cannon County, Tennessee, which is about 90 miles from Nashville. And, that was my first encounter. Like I said, I've been hunting there all my life, and my friends and I, there was three buddies of mine that would go up every year for opening week of black powder season or muzzleloader for either sex deer. And you could kill one, and we've been going up there for 5 or 6 years at that time. And
Yeah.
I,
Wow.
I pulled a big camper behind my truck and pulled it up next to my grandfather's barn and set it up, plugged in to the outlet there, and had the electricity going. And they followed me up with a large trailer with 4 ATVs. We all had an ATV, and we'd stay up there a whole week, Sunday till the next Sunday, and it was a great time. We'd hunted there for that long, and everybody always usually killed a deer if they wanted to kill one. There was plenty of them there, and this particular time was different because I wasn't really looking for deer or jerky or anything anybody wanted to make out of the meat. I was mainly looking for a trophy deer. And my granddad at that time, he lived on that farm and just a little ways from where I had the sighting all his life. He was right in that area there within 2 miles his entire life. And
Wow.
he was 92 years old at that time, and he was in unbelievable health. Everybody thought he was 75, but everybody knew him and knew he was a lot older. But
That's nice mountain air.
he was pretty tough guy, toughest man I've ever known. So, and he was pretty tough on me because we grew up on a farm, and he always had me doing the hard work with him. So I learned from him a lot of things. The best thing I learned was a man's word is what he stands behind. You better always make sure it's good. So
Yes.
I live by that and still do today. But
that's honor, integrity. That's
it
huge.
really is. My granddad was not rich with dollars, but he was rich with soul and his heritage, and people respected him all around the county for that.
Yeah, that's very unique. That's very
that's what it
unique.
used to be. I wish it was still like that. I'm sure it is in some places, but
the honor system.
it really is honor system. My granddad couldn't read or write. Anything that he did on paper was an X. So when you're born in 1900s, schooling wasn't very important growing up on a farm. So
no, that's true. It was just survival.
It was definitely survival. Yes.
Did he have any experiences himself?
Yeah, he did.
Oh.
I did not know it until he never told me about the experiences because he didn't want to frighten me. And my grandmother would always tell me too when we were kids, and my cousins would be up there, and we'd spend the night with my grandparents, and I would stay nearly the whole summer all the time. When I lived with my granddad till I started school. My parents worked in Nashville, and they only came home on the weekend. So, but I was pretty much on that farm most of my life until I got older, and he was gone. But my grandmother used to say, in the dark, we'd be outside playing the kids, and she'd say, "All right, everybody," she'd come on the porch and say, "Everybody get in, the booger man will get you." We heard that all of our life. We used to say, "Well, what's a booger man?" And she wouldn't answer, and everybody'd go in. She didn't want us outside after dark. And then after I had my first experience, which was, less than a mile from my grandfather's house, deep in the hollows, and I'd never been hunting there before. It was a long walk. I'd normally hunted close by, and we had deer stands built, and we had carry stands too. And we all hunted in different directions where we wouldn't have any issue with firing on each other. But that particular day was just unbelievable. My granddad told me, I asked him what would be the best place to get a trophy deer, and standing on his back porch, he pointed over on the hill and said, "You see that tree on that hill there?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "That's where you go. The bottom of that hill will be a deeper creek, and it's old grist mill that was there when I was a boy, but it's no longer there. My old home place is in the clearing there, but it's fell in now. You'll see the chimney and part of the tin roof." That's where I headed to on the opening day. So I went the day before and set my stand up and kind of scouted out a little bit and found a good spot and hung what you call a drag rag. You put on your boot and you put deer scent on it. When you walk in the woods, it covers up the human scent, and you walk in with that. And
that's brilliant.
We crossed the creek, and I crossed the creek. I found a real nice place for my stand. Now, these now you got to take in mind these hillsides are like 45-degree angle. They're almost straight up, and the trees are going straight up. So if I'm in a tree, I'm kind of overlooking the stream that was there, and I was right on the edge of it on the hillside.
Mm-hmm.
20 feet, maybe 30 from the creek itself, and I crossed the creek and hung that drag rag up on a tree limb across that side in a clearing, and that would usually kind of draw in a buck or something, the scent wheel. And I thought if I left it there all night hanging on that tree, I reached up and grabbed the limb. It's probably about 8 foot off the ground because I'm 6'5", and if I stretch my arm out, it's about a little over 8 foot. And I hung that limb, and I thought it would kind of saturate the area and maybe bring something in the next morning. So that's what I did. And that's how it started. My granddad woke me up the next morning, and I headed through the woods and down by my grandfather's house through a gate and across about a 200-yard wide sage field where grass had turned brown that time of year. And he had his cattle in that fence, cows, and got to a barbed wire fence and crossed it, and as soon as I jumped on the leaves on the other side of the fence, I started walking up the hillside, headed toward that way, and it was 5:30 in the morning. Had a flashlight and had my rifle, my gun, and my gear on my back, and I was headed that way. And took a few steps, and I heard something to the left of me moving around, walking. It sounded bipedal, like a person, and kind of startled me. I shined my flashlight real quick over there and didn't see anything, but kind of startled me. I'm thinking, I know nobody's hunting in here. My granddad wouldn't let them anyway with us here. And, kind of stayed on my mind. So I kept walking up the hill and crossed the first hill and the second one. And after I went down to the bottom of the last hill there, I found the creek and walked around the edge, and I found my stand. It was a climbing stand. It was already mounted around the tree. But as I was coming down right before I got to my stand, I heard something on the hill to the left of me. I heard something walking again. And I stopped and shined my flashlight up that way and did not see anything. And when I'd shine the flashlight, it would stop. I put the flashlight down, it would walk a little more, and it sounded like a person. And then I heard it stop. I didn't hear it make any more noise. And I kind of quickly got in my stand and climbed up. It takes probably a good 10 or 15 minutes to get up the tree in that climbing stand and lean back and kind of sink the bit of the bar into the tree where it won't slide. And I did that and put my safety strap on and tied it off above me to a tree limb, and had a little bar in front of me that I pulled up, and it had like a camo that dropped right below my chin all the way past my feet, kind of concealed you inside of it. And had my 50 caliber muzzleloader inside there, leaning on that little bar, and behind me I had some binoculars hanging on the limb I'd trimmed the day before, and had a little fanny pack with some black powder and reloads in it, and I was ready for hunting.
Yeah.
And I listened. It was still dark when I got there, and I listened for a while, and as soon as the light started coming up a little bit, I heard all kinds of the regular animals, squirrels running around and birds, and normal morning. It was a real foggy morning that morning, though. The creek in front of me I couldn't see the clearing for the fog. And that cleared off and started getting where I could see the other side pretty well, somewhere before 8 that morning. And I was just sitting quietly waiting for something to happen. And then about that time, to the left of me, there was a cane thicket to the left of me up the side of that creek. Some people call it Hurricane River, and some people call it Hurricane Creek. It's a pretty wide creek. It's in that particular spot, it wasn't that wide, maybe 12 foot, but it's deeper. And there's a cane thicket, and the cane is like bamboo almost. It's real tall, 12 to 15 foot tall, and it's so thick that you can't see through it, and it's very hard for something large to walk through there because it's thick. But somewhere to the left of me around that cane thicket, I seen 3 deer come out, and they took a couple steps and walked down through the creek, walked up through the creek onto the other side to the top there till there was a game trail that followed the top of that creek. and they walked up on it. It was a larger female, and I figured it was two of her yearlings, two young doe. They weren't very old, but they followed her up to the top, and they walked over and right straight ahead of me. I'm kind of overlooking them because I'm on this straight tree, about 28 foot up, and I'm looking kind of over the creek. And they were just doing what deer did. They were kicking around in the leaves. There was a large acorn harvest that year, and they were eating acorns. And I watched all three of them do that for a good while, and just keep an eye on them because normally that's a good sign. If you got a doe, you've got a chance for a buck to come in the area. And,
yeah.
I watched them for a little while, and then I noticed the larger deer, I figure the mother of those two, she was just froze, like completely still, staring at that cane thicket over there to the left, and the other deer behind her to the right, and one kind of behind her to the left, were just all three of these deer were like just frozen, not even moving, staring right in there. And I thought, well, that's kind of strange. It must be a big buck that's about to come out of this cane thicket. And I'm sitting there waiting to see what's going to happen. And then the larger deer raised their right front hoof up and pawed 2 or 3 times on the ground like she was trying to get something to move over there.
Oh, boy.
And I'm still looking, and the other 2 deer, the younger ones, are just froze. They're not moving. And I was watching the larger deer. Her ears were moving, and she was really listening. And about that time, she raised her nose and made a real loud blowing sound. It almost sounds like somebody sneezing, but it's louder. And in that hollow where I was at, it kind of echoed, and it was really loud. And I thought, well, there's a big buck about to come out of here. And she sees it over there, and I'm real still, and I've got my hand on my 50 caliber black powder rifle, and I remember reaching down and pulling the hammer back, and it's leaning against that little bar in front of me. And about that time, she just turns for no reason at all and runs right across in front of me as fast as she could, like somebody had shot at her. She was running so fast, and the other 2 followed her. And I watched them run off into the woods to the right of me until they disappeared into the hardwood. And sitting there thinking, okay, that's kind of strange. I've never seen a deer do that with a buck coming, but
yeah,
it was kind of different. But I'm thinking, okay, this is a large buck deer that's going to come out of this cane thicket over here. So I'm very calmly just waiting for that to happen. And all of a sudden, I start seeing the cane moving, swaying from the very back to the front to the middle, and then I could see a lot of these. I mean, it was really moving, and I thought, this is one large deer right here. And I'm kind of excited, thinking I'm going for a state record or something here.
Yeah, woohoo! Yeah.
I'm all excited thinking about that, and about that time, I watched it till it got to the end. Then it got quiet, it wasn't moving, and then this thing steps out, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. I'm looking at this thing, and it takes one step, and it leaps completely across the creek, or one step, and it lands on that little game trail, and it just gently, taking its time, walks right down to where those deer were, and right in front of me, I'm looking straight down on top of it, and it stops, and it turns and looks right at me.
Oh, it knew.
It knew exactly where I was at, and I'm sure now, knowing back what I do know, is that was probably what I heard when I was going in. But it's staring right at me. It isn't happy at all. It's the meanest, ugliest looking thing that I've ever seen still to this day. And it's growling at me. Then it shows me its teeth. It grits its teeth and shows me its teeth 2 or 3 times. And I'm close to this thing. I might be 50 or 60 feet. And I'm looking down kind of on top of it. And it's looking right up at me. And then it walks right over to that tree where I'd hung the drag rag at. It reaches up, grabs that, pulls it down, smells of it, and then just rips the whole tree limb out of the tree. and it wasn't a huge limb. It was probably 2 or 3 inches in diameter at the base of the tree, but still it got my attention when it just ripped that tree limb out like that and threw it on the ground. Then it walked right back over and it's staring at me again. And this thing is so mad. It's looking at me with just the most evil look and eyes. And the kind of the right side of its mouth was kind of contortioned in a different way, like maybe it had been in some type of accident or something. I can't explain it. It was kind of crooked on the right side. The smirk it was making, and it was really mad. And I thought, this thing is coming across the creek and it's going to pull me out of this tree. And I'd never seen anything like that. And I'd heard about, Bigfoot and everything else in the woods. And I don't scare too easy, but I've seen bear, I've seen everything in the woods, a mountain lion, you name it, I've seen it, but I've never seen anything like this. And I was just, at this point, I was just trying to breathe. And that's the truth. I couldn't get my breath. I was just scared to death. And
now, did you feel like he was big enough, like he could have given you a good shake and got you down, do you think?
Well, I mean, this thing was, judging by the tree limb and by my length of my arm and hanging it up there, its head was at the same area. So it was around 8 foot or maybe 8'1" or 2, a little bit taller. It was big. And the problem with me was I didn't really know what to do because I only had one shot with a 50 caliber muzzleloader. So it's going to take a good 7 minutes with my best time to reload, and I don't think I wasn't sure that what I had was going to kill this thing, and I knew if I shot at it and hit it and didn't kill it, it was going to be even madder. I really didn't know what to do. I remember I've never been that scared in my life, and I was seriously trying to breathe. I was just froze. And watching this thing, trying to run something through my mind, where to jump and run, or to shoot at it. I couldn't make my mind up what I wanted to do. And then about that time, it lets out this horrendous, unbelievable scream like yell that I've never heard since. And I've heard a lot of Bigfoot and Dogman and everything else recordings, and I've never heard anything like this thing let out. And it went all down through the hollow there, and it echoed, which made it sound even louder. And I thought, well, this is it. It's coming across. And I remember just grabbing my gun and just getting ready to fire at least one time before it comes to get me. And then about that time, it as quick as I was ready to aim at it, it turned and walked, just turned completely and started walking. And it stopped and turned and looked at me one time as I'm sitting still in the tree, and it just keeps walking. And I watch it walk off into the hardwoods straight ahead and disappear. And I lowered the bar. I wasn't going to take 10 or 15 minutes to climb down the tree stand. I jumped out of the top of the tree stand about 28 feet up.
Wow.
And landed on that real steep hillside. I hit those leaves and slid all the way down the bank into the creek with my gun above my head. And looked back, and I didn't see it, and I come up out of the creek and just took off running up that hill as fast as I could go. And it was such a steep hill. By the time I got to the top, I was so out of breath that I could barely breathe, and I had to slow down to catch my breath. And these hills are about 150, 200 yards from bottom to top, and they're so straight up that it takes a lot to climb them. And when I got to the top, I took a breath or two, looked back, didn't see it, and I took off down the hill. And I was almost up the second hill when I looked back on the hill, and I seen it standing up there. It was standing on top of the hill behind me, watching me, just standing next to a tree. And that just made adrenaline kick in more for me. And I ran fast as I could up the hill and crossed the top of that hill, and I looked back, and it was still standing there. It wasn't coming after me. And
you want to make sure you were going.
By the time I got to the bottom of the last hill, there was the barbed wire fence that I had climbed to get over. It's about 7 foot tall with a barbed wire strand, and I was going to jump it, and I was running as fast as I could downhill, and I cleared the fence. It caught the bottom of my pants and ripped them all the way up past my knee, and tore a big gash in my leg, but I didn't even feel that. I just kept going, and I ran
Yeah,
all
the
the way
adrenaline.
run all the way across that field to that
Yeah.
sage field, and got to the gate that went to my grandfather's backyard, and I opened it and looked back. I didn't see it, and I locked the gate and went running on his back porch and into his kitchen there in the back where the house, the back come into the kitchen area. And I went through the kitchen, went back, locked the screen door, and then locked the door and looked out the window, didn't see it, and went to the right and went into the living area. My grandfather was sitting to the left in his rocking chair and had a big, huge potbelly stove in the corner, between the corner and the middle of the house there. And I went over and just sat down behind it in the corner. I couldn't even talk. I was so out of breath. And my granddad just kept looking at me. He said, "Boy, you all right?" My granddad never called me by my name my whole life. He always called me boy. And I still couldn't say anything. I couldn't get my breath. And he said, "Boy, you look like you've seen a ghost." And
Worse.
trying to get my breath, and I finally got up and went and looked out the window and the back door and came back and sat down on the couch area there. And I said, "I seen a monster in the woods, Granddad." And he said, "A monster?" I said, "Yeah, I seen a monster in the woods." He said, "There ain't no monsters." And I said, "This was a monster." He said, "What did it look like?" And I told him. He goes, "Oh, you seen a wood booger." I said, "Well, I don't know what a wood booger is, but what I seen was the most evil, mean-looking thing I ever seen." And he said, "Oh yeah, you seen a wood booger? Should have told you back in that area there. Nobody's been in there in years. Or probably lived back in there." And I said, "Well, you never told me about any wood booger." And he said, "Well, your grandma called them booger man, and we call them wood boogers, and the old people call them that, and they live around here." And he said, "I've seen 4 in my lifetime. I'll be working in the field. I look up and want to be standing next to the fence post, and the fence just watching me work." And he said, "They don't bother you. They're just real territorial. They don't want you in their area." He said, "You probably messed up his hunt." And I said, "Well, I don't know what I did, but if I'd have known about a wood booger, I would have never been in these woods." He said, "That's exactly why I didn't tell you." And
That's frightening. I mean,
pretty crazy.
when this thing screamed out, I mean, obviously, this is a good thing that nothing called back out to him.
No, nothing called back out to him, no. And, going back today of what I know about these creatures and been around quite a few since then, I don't believe the one I seen on the hill when I was running was probably the same one. It was probably another one with this one or part of its clan or family. But it could have killed me if it wanted to, and it didn't. I think it was just like my granddad said, it was trying to scare me out of its area, and it done a good job. I've never been back to that spot since. So.
That's funny. I guess the question came up if you ever go back to that place. So
Never have been back, and my granddad's been gone quite a few years now too, and they sold the farm since then. And there's been plenty of times when I considered going back there. And matter of fact, I had a documentary company that had asked me to do a documentary and go back. And I talked to the people who own the land now. I did not know them. And, my parents sold the farm, and they didn't want me to go back there and be on their property. So I didn't press it any further than that. But they were not people. They said, "We'd rather you not go back there." And so I didn't. But, it was life-changing. Definitely life-changing. It's people don't realize what kind of life change it is when you see something like that.
Oh, I can imagine. And you're in a pretty vulnerable position as well.
Yeah, plus the fact that, I guess the thing that really bothered me, I never had anything give me fear like that did, because this thing was not like anything that I even imagined would exist. So, it was and the demeanor it had of so angry at me. It's just hard to explain the expression it had on his face. It was really mad. And, I hope I never see another one. I've seen quite a few Bigfoot since then. I hope quite a few of them, but none of them have ever looked like that. And my grandfather went on to tell me that in the wintertime, these creatures would come to his hen house over to the behind his house to the left. He had a hand hoed, as we call it, log chicken house had been there for probably 100 years. His uncle and grandfather built it, and he had probably 100 chickens in there. And he's a farmer. He sold eggs and sold chickens too. And he said they would come in the winter and they would take 3 or 4 of his chickens. These creatures would. They wouldn't take them all. They were respectful, as he said. And they would leave a little pile of rocks and sticks like they were paying for it.
Oh, they're trading.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Pretty amazing, yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool when he told me that. I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, have you ever seen what we call Indian money? I don't know if you've ever seen that, but that's what we call it. It looks like little cylinders of rock. It's hard to explain, but you can find them in the creek in certain areas. But
yeah,
it's called an Indian money. And he said they would leave some of those and some carved out or broken sticks that had different shapes, and like they were kind of swapping out with you. And he got along with them all his life, and he was very much aware of them, and my grandmother was too, But
you hear stories about that, though. You do hear stories about people who have them on their property, and I guess if they're used to you, they're comfortable enough. But how clever! That's just wonderful.
Well, you go back to, I don't know if you're familiar with the story, and I won't talk much about it, but you go back to Mary Green from Tennessee, where I'm from, and her grandfather lived on a farm with these creatures, and she did too. She grew up with them for, I think they said the creatures were with her family for nearly 100 years, and they had one they called Fox.
Wow.
And they were real close to him, and he had gotten injured. A tree fell on him, and they helped him, and he never forgot them. He come to see them all the time and visited them and brought his family to visit them. And
wow,
there's some pretty remarkable stories that's come out of about these creatures. And I can tell you for sure they're not all friendly. I've had bad experiences with them too. So they're like people. There's good and bad in everything.
Sure. Yeah, I've heard both sides of the coin as far as stories go. I am always amazed at the ones that are really friendly. We have one of our hosts on the network who's on the Navajo Nation.
Okay.
I mean, he's had family members pulled out of their tents and just yanked down a field. Like, what?
My grandmother on my grandmother on my dad's side lived in the same area. My grandparents of my dad, they live in the same area that my grandfather did, within about 10 or 15 miles from where my granddad lived. And my grandmother was Native American, Lakota Sioux Indian, and she had told me many stories about them. They call them the Chayatanka, which means great elder of the forest, watcher of the forest. And I learned a whole lot from her, and she had a very special presence about her and a great spiritual value with her about these creatures and other creatures too. And I definitely believe that I got a lot of that from her. But
the oral history, from the Native American people are just fascinating. They were quite accustomed. They have wonderful stories.
Oh yeah, there's lots of stories from tribes out west and other areas, and about these creatures coming in the middle of the night and stealing women and children. So
yeah, that's frightening.
That is frightening.
Right. Don't even want to think about that one. My head can go in different directions with that one, Darrell.
It would be a little frightening, these people out there and that happening, but it definitely, there's lots of tribes that reported that happening.
Wow.
From different areas of the country, where these creatures would do that. And
so, in your opinion, what or who are they?
Well, I have a very strong opinion, and I feel very good about it, and I think it's the truth. And I've got close friends of mine that my close friend Scott Carpenter that passed away back a few years ago. He believed they were the Nephilim, and he one of the best researchers that ever lived. And Scott was just fantastic and a close friend, and I miss him every day. And he believed that, and I've got of our team, several of us believe there was the same thing. By my experience with the family that I met on the river and spent uh, between 4 and 5 years with, and got to know them very well. They were completely different than the first one I'd seen. They were more like the Patterson Gimlin type.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I call them the forest people, and they make X's in the woods with big trees, deadfalls, or new trees, and they form X's. That's the marker of their family. That's the type. That's the type they are. And I've spent a lot of time trying to communicate with those creatures. I was there every day or every other day visiting those creatures after I decided to do that and befriend them and exchanged a lot of gifts and they made me gifts and there was 3 of them that stood out that I was very close to and the female that was about when I met her a little over 5 foot, and when I left there, she was closer to 6 foot. And the one behind her never did know his name, but he was about the same size. He was a male, and then the larger one behind them that watched them, he was about 7 foot tall. And I'd ask them many a time, I'd tell them my name and please tell me where you come from. Tell me your name. And I didn't get a lot of, they have their own language and I could hear them jabbering and talking between themselves. And they do understand English. They can say English words and they understand Native American words. So they're super intelligent, more intelligent than a lot of people. And, they have an intuitive way. They can tell what you're thinking. They can tell your intentions. And I do believe if they know that if you have a good heart, that you're there not to harm them. And they pick up on that. Their vibration is so much higher than us. If you I don't know if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do. I absolutely do. Yeah.
People, Ron Moorhead, one of my best friends, he wrote the best book I've ever read on that. It's called Quantum Bigfoot, and I've read it 5 times, and every time I read it, I pick up something else I missed, and I actually got a book right behind me here. So, it's the higher vibration they have is very, very incredible. They seem to have a way to figure out everything you're going to do or already have done. They already know. They know when you're coming in. You can't fool these creatures. If people think they can fool them, they're 100% wrong. And you don't. I 100% believe you do not see them if they don't want you to see them. Now, that's not saying somebody don't catch one crossing the road at 2 o'clock in the morning, or someone walking through the woods may not spot one 100 yards away crossing an area. I'm talking about they don't relay themselves to allow you to see them on a regular basis if they don't feel trustworthy toward you. And anyway, I did so many things with these creatures. I brought them, I think the coolest thing I ever did, I brought them plastic whistles like you give kids at a birthday.
Yeah.
They have little black strings on them, a little pack of them. I think there were 8 or 10 in the pack. And I brought them about everything, all kinds of food. I found out their favorite foods and found out what they liked the most. But I brought those little whistles and I hung them up before I left that day around the area. I sat on a 5-gallon bucket next to a tree, and they were in a huge patch of kudzu, if you know what that is. It looks like a large vine. It's just so thick you can hardly walk through it. Real good cover area. It's real soft and just covers an area, and you could hide in there and you couldn't be seen. But I hung those whistles up, and when I would leave, when I come in to see them every day, I would walk through this gate about 200 yards in the rural area I was in, and I would say I was fishing there. I'd fished there quite a bit, and it was an area that nobody could hardly get into because it was in some type of plant there on the other side of it, where they had a water filtration system or something for the county. But I would come in and say, "Hey, I'm here," as I'm walking down this game trail, and let them know I'm coming, and they start whooping and everything. They get excited. But when I brought them the whistles the next day, when I come in to see them, I could hear whistles blowing everywhere. When they heard me coming in, and I'd say, "I'm here to see you," and I'd hear a whistle to the left and a whistle way back in the woods and a whistle to the right and then a whistle across the river. And I'm thinking, my gosh, these things are all over the place. And you know,
Yeah.
there was a large family of these living in there. I don't know exactly how many, but
Yeah.
maybe 7, 8, 9, 10. But I've seen parts of a lot of them, but I only seen the whole body figure of them on a regular basis, the ones that friended me. And it was pretty amazing. When I'd leave, I would say, bye, I'll see y'all tomorrow. And I'd hear bye, bye, bye in different areas as I was leaving.
That's
They would
amazing.
mock me like, you know, saying bye back to me. So,
Yeah.
um,
That's
they're amazing.
amazing.
They're amazing people. They're not an ape, not anywhere near an ape. And you know, I asked them for a long time. You know, where are you from? Could you please tell me where you're from? And I would even draw it on the dirt there to try to get some kind of communication routes with them. And I learned what some things meant and some of their words meant by mocking them. But I said, are you from the heavens? And they just look at me, and I'd say, are you from another galaxy? And they went,
See?
from another galaxy. Okay, you're from another galaxy. Yes.
Yeah.
So that, as far as I know, that's where I think they're from. So
Yeah, there's so many different theories, you know, portal theories. There's theories that they
I don't
run.
think the portal theory has anything to do for where they're from. I think they could
There's
possibly
what dimensional,
get into
right?
the area in and out of the area through portals. I think that's very possible.
Yeah.
My close friend Scott Carpenter had one of the best portals that probably I've ever seen. He had it live on camera, and there's a creature trying to come out of it up in the Great Smoky Mountains. And you know, the portals do exist. I have seen, me personally, I've seen one myself in natural, and but I don't know how they work, and it may be one reason why so many people are missing in the national parks. But
I tend to go to that theory as well. I mean, remote viewers have often seen things like that, you know,
yeah,
portals and having them coming in and out. And there's been a theory that they, you know, one of the reasons that you miss them sometimes is that they'll travel like if they're a few seconds ahead of us. There's that
I
theory
can
as well.
see how that would be possible. I wouldn't. I tell you, after you see these creatures and see what I've seen, I don't really think that. I think you become so open-minded that you don't say no to anything. So,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
if somebody were to call me right now and say, "Hey, man, you need to come up here and look in New York City. There's a pterodactyl flying around in downtown New York City," I would probably say, "Okay, where's it at? Can you get me a picture of it?" I wouldn't say, "Sure, man, you're crazy," but you know, I mean,
Yeah.
after you see so much of this stuff, and it's very difficult for people that haven't seen it to understand, and I'm sure it's kind of hard for some people to swallow because you know, people ask me all the time about things, and I tell them all I can tell you is what I've experienced. So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy. Your average person, your average family that never go into the woods or never go hiking, they're just working their everyday life. They don't have a clue what's really out there.
No,
They
it's
really
true. I think it's you know, people barely can handle some, and I say some. I think ghosts and, you know, spirits, things like that are a little easier for people to digest because there's so many shows on TV, and now there's starting to be a lot more cryptid shows, but they seem to draw the line when they're like, okay, that just seems to be a little much, you know, for us to take. Bigfoot, I think, is a little different because he's so widely spoken of. There's so many encounters, but you start getting into other cryptids, and they're just like, okay, that's it for me. And aliens, that's just way off the charts.
Really, I mean, you know, there's people ask me a lot. They'll ask me questions a lot of times that I can't answer because I don't know the answer to it. But you know, I try to give them the best, my best guess of what it could be because for a long time, and I still get, and I get tickled because my ladies, they're just about every morning when I get up, there's at least 5 or 10 messages from people. Most of them I've never heard of them or met them, and they sent me a message on my phone. I've got this big creature behind my house, and can you tell me what it is and what I should do? And I mean, this is all over the country, and of course, I don't have I don't have the ability to go to all the locations, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'll try to answer them. But there's a lot of people that are experiencing these things that don't know what to do, and I can make a suggestion for you. Whatever you do, don't fire up on them. So unless they're trying
Oh.
to harm you or your family or your livelihood, don't fire at these creatures, because I can assure you they have family members, and you
Yeah.
shoot one of these creatures and you're very lucky if you come out of it. So
Isn't
but
it illegal in some states, Darrell, to shoot them, to kill them? Wouldn't it be
I've not
considered
heard
murder?
that. I'm not heard that it is illegal or legal. I know that I believe I'm right about Washington State, and maybe Oregon has signs up that and states that it is illegal to kill them in those areas. Now, I'm not sure about the legality of everywhere else. What tickles me is, the national parks and the U.S. government want to admit that they exist, yet they've got these laws, and then they've got signs. And I stayed 10 days in, I think it's Colorado Springs, Colorado, back in 2012 or 13, and in Pikes Peak area, and there's
Yeah.
Bigfoot everywhere there. And there's signs up that tell you, you're in the area of Bigfoot, be careful and don't do anything to bother these creatures. So,
Wow.
but
Yeah.
yet, we have that type stuff up, but we don't admit to exist. And I'm 100% believer that the reason why they will never exist is because the national park industry is a 2.5 billion. That's with a B industry every year of people with hiking and camping and going into the wilderness. They're not going to tell people that
Yes.
there's a hairy dog man running around out in the woods, or 8 foot tall or 12 foot tall Bigfoot that might hurt you. We're not sure. So it's not
Yes.
gonna, it would do some damage to the revenue, I would think.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. Which leads me to the land between the lakes. I think this is one. There's just so much information out there. It's hard to know exactly what's real, what's not. So what I have read, what I have, again, different sources, is that there used to be a village there of sorts, or a town, and I guess you had dogman sightings, very aggressive Bigfoot sightings, and of course, government comes in and says, "Okay, nope, we're just everybody's moving out. We're turning this into a national park, blah, 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 blah." So I'm going to let you go. You just have an idea what people are reading out there. So what's real? What's disinformation?
Well, first of all, the land between the lakes, there was that area at one time was well known in the 17th, and even in the late 1700s. I think it was the French and the Native Americans in that area that settled in that area.
Yeah.
They were talking about dogman type creatures back in that day, attacking animals and people.
Wow.
And that we're talking about 300 years ago. So I do think those creatures existed in that time, and probably a whole lot longer than that. You go back to even the writings and the glyphs up on the
Yeah.
places of the dog-headed creature. I think
Wow.
the Egyptians call them the Neph or whatever they were called, and I think those creatures have been around a long time now. The land between the lakes is no longer owned by the National Park Service. It's owned by the Forestry Service, the U.S. Forestry.
Wow.
So the national parks got out of there quite a while back. I don't really know reason why. I have my own reason, and so does Martin Groves, who's spent hundreds and hundreds of hours and talked to eyewitnesses, talked to former rangers, former employees of the national park, former state police. He's talked to so many people and witnesses who've been attacked or seen these creatures, and I'm talking about the dogman creature here. Most of the southern end at one time of the area of what we call land between the lakes was mostly the sightings of Bigfoot were in the southern end of it's 170,000 acres of rural nothing. There's campgrounds, nice campgrounds scattered throughout the park, and I'd say more than half of those campgrounds are closed now for one reason or another. And just 3-4 years ago, they closed one of the better campgrounds, the Jones Creek campground, which makes no sense whatsoever. They said the bridge was a problem, crossing the bridge, and there's no problem with the bridge at all, and they're still running bulldozers across it with a gate across it, going back in there. And but that was a really nice camping area. It had, I believe it had a tennis court, basketball court, even a grocery store. I don't know how many camping sites. And it's completely closed now. No one can go in there. We know for a fact there was. We know for a fact there was some Dogman sightings in there and possibly an attack. And then it had closed right after that.
Yeah, well, we read about a family being attacked in there. I think that goes back quite a few years, though, doesn't it?
That was a 1982 massacre at the LBA. And, there's no documentation that you can find that proves that ever happened, except for eyewitnesses and former sheriff's department and other people that were there. And with all the research we've done, and we've been to the actual spot, my team has actually camped there on that spot within 50 feet of where that happened. And it's a very strange area. I do believe it happened. And, there's just too many people that witnessed things that happened in that particular time for it not to be possible that it did happen. But there's strange things in the LBA. First of all, they flooded that area in the early 60s. These were people's farms, and people had lived there for hundreds of years, and they didn't want to leave. The government, the TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, was going to build dams there for electricity, and that's where the Tennessee River and the Cumberland River go together, and they forced people out. People didn't want to leave, and I don't know how many graveyards were flooded, and tons and tons of farms, even schools and towns are underneath the Kentucky Lake, and
wow,
that area where people run out, and that a lot of people think that has a lot to do with what goes on there, because there's so much blood there on the ground. And I think that, there may be something to that, but there are cemeteries, 1,700 cemeteries, and as far back as the 1700s, still in the park in the middle of nowhere. And we've run into them many a time, and some of those graves are very old, but seems to be very strange. But a lot of the Dogman sightings are seen around the graveyard areas. And
it makes a bit of sense if you look back into the Egyptian history with Anubis being guardians of gateways. Things like that. Like, like, is it something that just somewhere in their genetics, like a memory?
I've got real heavy into Dogman. I did Bigfoot for years, and just because I felt like I was, for some reason, those creatures seemed to find me, and like I said, I've had some bad experiences and had some good experiences with them. And the Dogman is a whole different type creature. It's not anything near a Bigfoot type creature. I've seen 4 Dogmen myself personally, 4 complete Dogmen. I've seen pieces of other ones running through the woods and in the brush, but not the whole creature that I could identify it by. But my first Dogman sighting was in Tazewell County, Virginia in 2020 or 21. And that was the first one I seen. It looked like a large black German Shepherd, about 3 times the size of a normal German Shepherd. It ran on all 4s like a horse, and then it stood up on 2 feet and crossed the fence. So the other ones I've seen were being the LBL, the documentary that Martin Groves and I done in 2023 with Small Town Monsters, was the one that he and I seen near the area. We were going there because it was 29 years to the year that he had his encounter there, which the Dogman creatures tried to kill him and his partner, Martin Groves, and his partner Harry, and we were going to that area. It was 12 o'clock at night. It's a dirt road that goes there. Then you have to get out and walk, and that's where we were headed. And this huge creature was laying into the ditch right next to us, and it went from like a blue mist, and I had a flashlight shining on it, and I was in Martin's truck. He was driving. We're doing maybe 1 or 2 miles an hour, and this thing's landing in a ravine. Turned out next to a culvert, next to a dry creek bed, and it's looking right at me. I've got my window down, my arm out, and it's just staring right at me. I'm probably 5 to 7 feet from it, and it's got clear eyes that like little flashlights, and had mane around its neck like a line, and it went from a bluish color to a silver color, and you could even see the tips of the hair on its fur or its hair were light, like lit up on the very tips, and strangest thing I've ever seen. And then it got up, it walked right toward me, and it went right around the side of our truck. It was more like gliding than it was walking, and it went behind the back of the truck, and we got hit by some type of zapping or infrasound, whatever you want to call it.
Interesting.
I was pretty sick. Martin said the truck smelled so bad he couldn't breathe. And Martin was about to pass out. He had an allergic reaction to it, and his throat and his tongue swelled up, and he couldn't hardly breathe. And he was telling me, I can't breathe. And I was trying to, my legs were like they were numb, and I had upper chest pressure and a headache. And I was trying to pull myself together to help him. And I wasn't hit nearly as bad as he was, and we were still driving, just moving along 1 or 2 miles an hour, and this creature comes around the side of him, the side of the truck, and I'm shining the big light because I don't want this thing to get on us or another one to try to, in the condition we're in. And the strangest thing about it was that it was a full-bodied creature, but it was also transparent. And it went up through this field up a hillside, and we could hear it breaking tree limbs and everything going up the hillside. And I was trying to get Martin under control where he could breathe, and it was pretty frightening. I thought he was going to pass out, and I finally got the truck turned around, and we got out of there and made it about 1.5 miles away at a spot that had a street light where the camping area was with a restroom there, and got Martin some water, but it took him about 2 weeks to get over that. He was sick that whole night, and he was sick for nearly 2 weeks, and I was in pretty good shape the next day, but nothing like what he was. I don't know how these things have the ability to do that, but I've been zapped or infrasound, whatever you want to call it. I've been done like twice with Bigfoot and one time with Dogman, the one time being that time. And it's a very strange feeling, and I think it's some type of radiation they're able to put off, and because it just has a most different effect on you. It's almost like demobilizing where you can't hardly even move.
Yeah. Well, that's I guess like their attack mode, like their defense mechanism to
some type of
incapacitate you,
I've never seen anything like that before. The other 2 dogs, the total of 4 I've seen. The other 3 were more like flesh and blood. This thing was like something I've never seen. So I can't really explain it, except it was a dog head. The head was about half the size of our windshield. It was just massive. And
wow.
It was as real could be. When I looked at Martin, his eyes were big. He'd seen it too. We thought it was going to come in the window of my side and jump in the truck. But it was very strange. But
that's. There's so many stories that come out of there. I read a story, and again, truth to it, I don't know, where it's believed that there's a military underground base up there, and that there were eyewitnesses that saw a dog man being taken out on a military truck.
Well, I know for a fact that Fort Campbell military base is it's in other side of Clarksville, Tennessee, and the land between the lakes is a pretty good distance from there, not a long way.
Mm-hmm.
I've been hearing those stories since I've been researching there about the underground bunkers and
Mm-hmm.
tunnels and underground systems that go all the way to that base. And
Yeah.
it's all speculation as far as I'm concerned. I don't have any proof
Yeah.
of that. None of us do, and it may be true. It may not be true. I
Mm-hmm.
do know that the Dogman creatures lives there,
Mm-hmm.
and I know there's a lot of them there. I don't know. Let me rephrase that. There's plenty of them there.
Wow.
We were circled in March of 2022. Martin Groves, myself, and Martin Nunley. That was also a night that Martin had been zapped. We were eating dinner in a place we call Area 23, which is a real hot spot. Nobody's ever spent the night there before. That's tried to, because of some type of creature would run you out, either a Bigfoot or a Dogman. And we stayed there, and we were circled by these creatures. They were howling and running all around us in the middle of the night. It was pretty frightening. Probably about as scared as I've been since my first encounter.
Yeah.
That night. And
Yeah.
these things were just, but we could hear them running through the leaves, and they were coming.
Mm-hmm.
And we could hear them crossing the water behind us. That was what they call winter pool. They dropped the lake down to about a foot deep water in the back coves, and we could hear something running across the water coming toward us, and I believe it was probably some of those creatures. But this went on for a good 20 or 30 minutes, and I looked at Barton. We were sitting next to a campfire in the woods, and I said, "Are you ready? Because they're coming. I can hear them." And they were howling. And I started off with coyotes, and then it was the Dogman. And Martin was still sick. He had his vehicle pulled up into the woods there, and he was laid back a little bit, trying to get better. And at that time, a friend of mine named Beth Collinsworth, my phone does not work in the LBL. There's no service. It just will not work. And all of a sudden, my phone rings, and I'm thinking, how does this happen? And my phone's ringing. I answered the phone. It was her, and she's a real intuitive person, and the best I know of. And she says, y'all need to get out of there. She said, where are y'all at? The LBL. I didn't tell her I was going to the LBL. She didn't know we were there or nothing. And she said, y'all need to get out of there. There's Dogmen all around you, and there's a feral man with them. And I said, what? What are you talking about?
Feral man?
Yeah, I said, how did you call me? And she goes, I just woke up and I had to call you. And anyway, it's the first time my phone has ever worked, and it did. And she hung up. And about that time, Martin hears that. We're getting ready to think these things are about to attack us. And, it's in one of those areas where you got to be careful about carrying a weapon, because you're not supposed to have weapons in there unless it's a knife. And we're getting ready for these things to attack. Martin gets up, gets out of the vehicle, walks straight by us, walks into the woods, and starts chanting this real loud scripture. I couldn't hear what he was saying. I kept telling him, don't go in the woods by yourself, Martin. Do not go in the woods. He just walked right by me, walked right into the woods, and he starts chanting this real loud. I couldn't understand what he was saying, but I could hear him, and he came back, and he went and got back, laid back down in his truck, and he still didn't feel good. And we didn't hear another noise the rest of the night. It was the strangest thing I ever seen.
Yeah.
Gosh. He told me that he had chanted a scripture from the Bible, and he like me believes that all these creatures are very well know what Jesus Christ is. So
yeah.
But whatever he did worked, because they got quiet, and it didn't. We didn't hear another sound the rest of the night. So
I think part of that too is, when you're reciting the scriptures, for example, is that energy that comes up because of that strong intention, like the power behind the words, the strength of the intention.
I can believe that. Yeah, definitely, because that's part of the vibration too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I believe it's all related. I think all this stuff's related. I don't know how, but I just think it is. It's just too many coincidences out
I
of
agree.
so.
I agree. Everything is connected. Absolutely. So when you say that there were, you feel that there are different types of dogman. There's dogman. There's big dogman, which you know I'm like these things from what I've read are massive, just in sheer girth. They're
Well,
just
the one I
massive.
seen very well that in 2021 in Tazewell County, Virginia, I camped out. Well, I went in. I'm gonna say I camped out. I went and stayed the entire night in my truck for on and off for nearly a month because
Wow.
the guy there was living with his great aunt, and him and his wife and two young children were terrified because whatever this creature was had killed all their goats. And when I just happened to run into this guy by complete accident, I was at a country store where I went and drank coffee with these gentlemen on early in the morning, and this was in the Virginia area at that time. And I heard this man say, "I've got a creature at my place. Does anybody here know about creatures?" And
Mhm.
me just sitting there on the end of the table with these old farmers having a coffee at early in the morning, I caught my attention. I looked around and do you know anything about creatures? I said, well, I know a little bit about them. What kind of creature are you talking about? And he said, I don't know what it is, but whatever it is killing all our goats. And, I immediately thought maybe it was some dog or something, or just, that happens a lot with sheep and goats in the farm areas, some kind of canine regular dog, not a dog man, will kill goats. And
Mhm.
oh, no, it's not anything like I've ever seen. Anyway, I went out there. Not that day. I got his address and I went out there. And I met him at the barn there where the goats had been killed. It was a shed. It wasn't a barn. And the goats had already been drug off somewhere. And but I could see the tracks. And when I seen the tracks, I knew immediately what it was. And he said, "You know what kind of track that is?" And I said, "Yes, I think I know what it is." And he asked me, and I didn't want to scare the guy to death. I said, "You're probably better off to keep your children in the house. Don't let them come out at night or outside alone." And
Mhm.
because I don't know, this creature killing all your goats, it might, hurt your children. So
Yeah.
anyway, it took me a
Yeah.
good while, but this creature was completely flesh and blood, and it was probably a little over 6 foot tall when it stood up on its hind legs.
Mhm.
It wasn't anything like I've heard 8 foot, 10 foot,
Yeah.
all that stuff. I've never seen a Bigfoot much bigger than 8 foot or a little more than 8 foot myself. Now other people have seen them. I've heard 10 foot, 12 foot, 16. I've heard all kinds of numbers,
Yeah.
but I've
Yeah.
never seen them, and that don't mean they don't exist like that. I just have never seen one.
Mm.
This particular dog creature was a little over 6 foot tall. It had a massive head, it was just a black German Shepherd.
Yes. Yes. Um, so you say that you think, okay, you had like the dog man, as we know, the big, like they're just as wide in the shoulders or just husky, I guess. Pardon the pun. but
Well,
but
they really look like they seriously. You've heard people say they look like a bodybuilder. They really do.
yeah.
They really are built like that up here. They have they're real narrow
Hmm.
when it comes down to the lower abdomen, and they're bigger up here, and they look like somebody that works out. That's what they really look like. And,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. I see them in cartoons.
yeah,
This little husky guy. But you
it's
mentioned that there are other wolf types. Are these like hybrids of sorts? Because there are those stories about, and again, this is where I said, is this rhetoric or is
well,
this accurate? The
there's
hybrid Bigfoot wolf, right?
there's some things that I've been told that I really can't discuss with some people, and
Yeah.
that seem to know what they're talking about. I don't know, but
Yeah.
seem very, very educated on the subject, and former military people that I've said I wouldn't talk about on,
Sure, sure.
why
And
I
yeah.
won't. But I will say this: that I do believe that there are a lot. I know there's a lot of these creatures all across the country, not just in the LBL. There are other places too. I've got
Mm.
plenty of people that contact me from Texas that see them. Michigan that see them, South Carolina. I mean, just they're everywhere. They're just like the Bigfoot. These creatures are. I don't know where they came from, but they're around, and I think they've been here a lot longer than we understand. Both of them, the Bigfoot and the Dogman, and I do believe. I do. This is me believing it. I don't have any proof of this. I do think the government has interfered with some of these things and probably tried to make something bigger than better than I've heard about. And sometimes
I've read that too. Yeah.
I don't doubt that something like that didn't happen. It's pretty well proven that back in the Nazi era, there were plenty of things done like that.
There were. Yeah.
And I think they're probably a whole lot smarter today than we were then, and have a whole lot more capability of doing something like that. A lot
more technology. I always think Dr. Moreau, the island of Dr. Moreau, comes to mind.
That's true. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have any evidence of any of that. That's just my own thought. But I know of all the cases that me and Martin Groves, or Martin Groves by himself, Barton Nunley has done a lot of those too. And the LBL, Martin's got a ton of reliable people. These aren't people just making up things. We're talking about a grandma and grandpa that are in their 80s that got scared to death at a graveyard because one of these dogman creatures jumped out of a tree while they were visiting the gravesite and scared them to death. So, I mean, these people aren't making up this stuff.
No.
I mean, I'm sure there's some people that may say things that aren't true, but the biggest majority of what we've talked to, we've even talked to people that's witnessed attacks on the side of the lake, attacking a man and woman, one of these dogman creatures. So I don't know how many people are missing. People ask me that all the time. How many people are missing in the LBL? I don't have any idea how many are missing.
My next question. Yeah.
I do think there are people missing there. I don't know how many. I do know that there are things that's happened there that I don't think have been publicly been honest about, and it's anytime you hear of any type of creature attack or death, it's and if they don't know what it is, the answer is either a bear or an unknown animal. It's one of those two when they don't want to put down what it is, because maybe they don't know what it is. But on top of the fact, I have no doubt that the government knows about the dogman creature. They know about Bigfoot. I mean, and there's other creatures out there that I've seen. So there's things that not just in the LBL, but LBL is the strangest place I've ever been. I will say that. When you drive into the LBL, it can be mid-afternoon. You get a funny feeling when you drive in there. And I don't know why that is or what causes that, but it's just a different place. I've been there and literally seen, 6 to 14 of us were camping there in a place called Hillman's Ferry on the north end of the National Forestry and part of the LBL. And we're all sitting around a campfire. We've all got cabins we've rented, and we're just kind of in the camping area. And we're going out into our research areas that night. And we literally, 3 of us were at the fire. The rest of us, 3 went out in a vehicle, 3 went out in another vehicle, and 3 others went out in another vehicle, while 3 of us stayed at our campfire. And we were going to certain areas where we had seen things. And we witnessed a regular white clear moon on a clear night. We witnessed all these people, and no, we weren't doing any drugs, and no, we weren't drinking. And I watched the moon go from a white moon to almost a red moon out of nowhere, and it lasted a little over an hour and a half. And we all witnessed it. We couldn't believe what we were seeing, but it happened. And one of the vehicles that went in a certain direction, they called back and said, "You're not going to believe what we're seeing." And there were a lot of reliable people in that. A former sheriff was driving that vehicle, former sheriff's deputy. and he was with a close friend of mine, Elijah Henderson and Gabby Henderson, whose dad did a lot of work with Land Between the Lakes. Johnny Henderson had his own show on about the massacre, actually. But they were together, and they tell us, "You're not going to believe what we're seeing. The road that we're going down, there are hundreds of snakes going across the road. They're everywhere. Snakes crossing the road." A little further down, the snakes disappeared, and there were just herds of deer running across the road, like they were all running from something. And they said they'd never seen anything like it. And then they turned a curve, and they watched a dogman creature run across the road on its hands, like on all fours.
Yeah.
And it looked back at them and disappeared. And these are some of the most honest people I've ever known, and there's no doubt they've seen all this. And it sounds very strange, because it is very strange. Now, one of the other cars, there was 3 women in that car. They had to stop in the middle of the road, or one of the areas we researched, because a Mothman landed in the road.
Throw Mothman in the mix now.
In front of the car, it was not the huge Mothman like a big one. It was a small one. But they swear up and down, it had red eyes. It looked like a Mothman. It sat and looked at them. They couldn't drive. It was right in front of them, and then it just flew off.
Wow.
The other vehicle that went out didn't see anything, but they came back, and shortly, right after they came back, the moon went back. I know you probably think this is crazy. It's true.
I'm in the field of high strangeness, man, for a couple of decades. Not as long as you have, but I've seen a lot of stuff. I'm on board with anything you're saying right now.
Well, we went out, all 3 of us, after they got back, and we didn't see anything. It was over with, I guess. But the moon came back to the regular color, and how that happened, I couldn't explain it. I don't know what would explain that, but it did happen, and we all witnessed it. And those strange things going on, that was one of the strangest nights we've ever had there. But
it's almost like you just went through this, this shift in reality
really
or something.
You're exactly right. It's like a time shift or something. It doesn't make any sense. But, and then, let's see, March of 2024, when we were there, we used to go there nearly twice a month and stay 3 or 4 nights. We got 2 or 3 different areas we go into. And this particular night, we went back to the area 23, right down from it, not right on it, but close by. And it was Ron Moorhead, myself, and Martin Nunley, and Martin Groves. And we made, Martin is very good at making calls. He's really good at it. He can make a call and a lot of times get an answer back. And we're out in a pretty remote area, and he makes this long, loud call, and this thing, just in a matter of seconds, answered back, and it was the most horrendous sounding call or answer back I've ever heard. We recorded it. We recorded 2 of them, and we turned those in to 2 different people that done the voice type things, and they can tell if any of these have existed, and I can't recall their names. Martin knew them, and we turned that recording in. And they listened to it for 2 or 3 months and got back. There's nothing ever been recorded with that type of howl.
Wow.
So we don't know
the octave level, eh? Like
it was crazy. It went on for a long time, and it was very different. And then a second call was even stranger than that one. But that same trip we were on, we were in an area that same trip 2 nights after that, when Martin and Barton and I were on a trail from a campground that's closed down, a different one in the area. We were walking a trail in the dark, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, had our vehicle parked up down the road, and we were walking into that area because we had heard that they had been seeing some things in that area. And I shined the light, and they're up on a bank walking down this trail behind me. I'm in front of them down in this like little ravine, and I hear something running through the woods, and we see this whitish gray creature running through the woods without the flashlight on. It was just so bright you could see it. This thing runs, I don't know, maybe 10 foot in front of me, runs up a tree. I shine the light on it, and it's one of those crawler things that I've heard
Oh,
of.
come on.
I've never seen.
Oh,
I've
because
never.
that's not wiggy enough.
Yeah, yeah. I've never seen one of them, and that's what
Oh,
it was. And
yeah.
it ran up this tree. It was just so. It just like it just ran right up it, and it was a huge tree. And all three of them, they yelled at me, "Hey, are you okay down there?" I said, "Yeah." "Are y'all looking at this?" They said, "Yeah, we got the flashlight on it." And I had my flashlight on it, and this tree was probably 150 foot tall. It was a huge tree, and it had no leaves on it. And it got to the very top, and every time we'd shine a light on it, it would go around the tree where we couldn't get the light on it. But it
Oh,
was in the top of this tree, and we were standing there, and they were telling me to get back up there with them. They were afraid this thing might attack me, and
mm.
I was still trying to shine the light on it, and then it started making this clicking sound. I can't explain it. It was like a real loud click, 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 and then another click, click, real loud. And then we heard some up behind me, like maybe 100 yards away, clicking back. Two or three of them were making a click, click back, and this thing was communicating with, I guess, a couple of other ones in the woods. But that's the first time I'd ever seen one of those. We all three seen it. We couldn't believe what we were seeing. And
It's exciting, but it's sort of like frightening at the same time. It's like that double-edged sword because I'm one of those people that just throw caution to the wind and say, "Screw it, I want in." And then you get there and you're kind of like, "Okay, was this a good decision?"
that's a good way to put it. It really is.
Yeah, jump in with both feet first, then think about
Exactly. Yeah. But
it.
I never
Yes.
knew those things. I've never seen one before. I've heard of them, but they do exist.
Yeah, it's funny. The only thing I've ever heard makes clicking sounds have been mantis extraterrestrials, and they're like picture a huge bug,
Yeah.
like it's like
Well,
clicking and
this thing was making a really loud clicking noise. So
yeah,
it looked like
yeah,
a human being on all fours when it went up the tree,
long
and it
limbs, eh?
was so skinny. I can't even explain how skinny this thing.
Yeah,
But it was pale whitish gray color, and it had big eyes, and the head was a little bigger.
yeah.
But it ran up a tree just like a squirrel. It's the strangest thing I've ever seen. I don't know how it did that,
They're
but
like contortionists too, with these extra long limbs. Like they can
I
do
guess.
these funky things. Yeah, it's just. Well,
I
I
know,
don't know.
that was the first time I've ever seen anything like that. I've seen, I've seen plenty of Bigfoot in the land between the lakes, and
So
three Dogman, but I've never seen one of those things.
So let's talk about the Bigfoot and these of the alleged Bigfoot Dogman battles and wars, and because they're both very territorial, obviously. So how does that work? Because they both obviously circle around a lot of area.
Well, I've got pictures from certain friends of Bigfoot and Dogman together.
Ah,
And for years and years, I had heard that they would not associate with each other, and they didn't share the same territory. It was a territorial
mm-hmm.
difference, like you're talking about. And I don't know if they had battles or fought or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of that, and I'm sure they probably have. Most creatures do, but
Mm-hmm.
I've never witnessed anything like that. But I do think that. Going back to Martin Groves, in 1993, April of '93, when he was turkey hunting, him and his partner Harry in the land between the lakes, not very far from where we had that sighting, and they were camping for 3 or 4 nights to hunt it, and they would get up in the morning early and turkey hunt, and
Mm-hmm.
Martin had those creatures following him back from his hunting spot. He thought it was a man in a ghillie suit. He couldn't tell what it was. He'd walk a ways and he'd see it, and then he would stand behind a tree and it would stop. So he thought, this is kind of strange. Somebody's following me. And
Mm-hmm.
he got to the camp, and his partner Harry was waiting on him there, and it had just turned dark. He had a fire going, and Martin got to the camp, and he's sitting there, and Harry's telling him what's happened. He said, I was in a field, and this creature was trying to scare me, and I couldn't tell what it was, but it wasn't natural. So anyway, just within a matter of minutes, a dog-headed creature comes around the side of Martin's vehicle, and it's looking right at him next to the campfire. This thing's within 15 feet of him. And about that time, whatever it did, it some kind of zapping to both of them, because neither one of them could hardly move. And Martin started praying because he couldn't move. He was scared. He thought this creature was going to get him. And when he started praying, he started coming back to his normal self, and this creature came out. He stood up with his police revolver and fired 2 shots right at it.
Wow.
And it took off, screamed, and it took off running, went up the side of a bluff behind him. Harry, his partner, gets to his senses, stands up. There's one behind a tree behind him. He fires a shotgun and hits it. And it takes off running up the side of the bluff. And these things are screaming on top of the bluff, and he can hear other ones coming. So they get up, and they get in the truck. And Martin jumps in the back of the truck. Harry jumps in the front to start it and drive, and he starts to drive out. Now, they're in a field back here that goes up to a mountaintop, and it's not a road. So they're out in the middle of nowhere in the land between the lakes. And as they started the truck up and started to drive, right in front of the truck within 50 feet was 2 huge Bigfoot. And they were huge. Now, these creatures were in partners with these Dogmen. They were all together. So these creatures tried to stop the truck, and I still today believe that it probably wasn't a Bigfoot. It was probably a Gugway, because they were huge creatures, and Martin described them, what he could remember, the best he could remember, as having a little bit different look to them. So I don't know if that's the case, but I believe that's what they were. And they floorboarded the truck, and these creatures were trying to stop them. They grabbed the hose of the side of the truck and scratched down the side of the fender as they went through a creek bottom and went up above the creek to hit the road. And they got out of there. But they were very lucky to live. And my point to the story is these Dogmen were with these Bigfoot or Gugway trying to kill Martin and his partner. As they look back, as they're driving away, as Martin looked back out of the back of the truck, these creatures are tearing his tent apart, his campsite apart.
Wow.
Ripping it to pieces as they're driving away. They can see the light from the campfire. And these creatures were definitely there to try to kill them. So I believe they do. And in that case, definitely they were all together, because what he thought was a man in a ghillie suit was one of these Bigfoot or Gugway. And a Gugway is the same thing, same similar looking creature as a Bigfoot. It just has a snout.
Yes. Well, that's what they're saying, like this hybrid between the two.
Right.
You know.
But the Indian name for the Gugway is face eater. So that's what Gugway stands for. So these things are supposed to be pretty bad news. I've never seen one personally, and I hope I don't. But they are in the land between the lakes. I've heard people that's seen them, but I've never seen one. Closer to the Tennessee Riverside, I've been told. So,
yeah, you can imagine how many people have these encounters, and you just don't hear them, like you say. They just disappear.
Back when we had, I had my encounter, and then 4 months later, Martin had his. I mean, I was an elected official. He was a chief deputy sheriff. He couldn't go tell people what he'd seen, and there was really nobody to talk to back then. There weren't any groups like I have.
Yes.
We don't allow any criticism or anything. Or if you join the group and you want to tell your story, there ain't no criticism, laughing emojis. Everybody's open-minded, and if they don't like the story, they can move on to something else. But and there weren't any shows like you have here that we could discuss this. And matter of fact, there weren't any radio shows. But the only radio show that you could hear of in that day was probably Coast to Coast, and that was all about UFO or aliens. So there wasn't anything where you could talk about it. It's a whole lot more open now than it ever has been. And Martin had PTSD all the way up to
Oh,
2022.
I would think so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only person he told was me. We'd go to lunch together and talk about it. So, he had up to 2022. That was the first time he ever told his story.
Wow. I mean, do you guys go back there? Does he go back there?
Oh
Or
yeah,
was that
we don't. Nobody's ever been to that spot but me, and I've only been there one time.
yeah.
And we were planning on going there that night that we seen that creature on the road that made us sick. That was our goal to go back there. And
Well, something stopped you dead in your tracks, I think. I mean, if they're telepathic, for example, I would think that, if there was something going on there, somebody wanted you out of there.
Well, I've been asking Martin for a long time. He's such a close friend to me. I say, how long are we going to do this? Why are we even going back up there again? I'm trying to figure out why we're doing this. So, I understand what his reasoning, because he has to get in his mind that he's good with everything that happened, and I think that's the biggest reason that he does it. But he lived through a lot of like I said, PTSD and a lot of fear and turmoil for a lot of years, not being able to express himself or tell anybody but me. And it's hard to hold something like that in.
Well, yeah, it's not like you can basically just go to counseling and say, "Hey,"
if you go to counseling on something like that, they probably say, "Bring me a straight jacket."
Exactly. Yeah, you're gonna just have a nice little vacation, a little rest in a nice white padded room for a while. And we even got you a new coat.
Exactly.
Yeah, pretty much. It's not something like, I think this is like, I think we were talking about a few minutes before, the show, is that people are very open minded for the most part when it comes to ghosts and hauntings, and because most people have, spirit visitations. Oh, Aunt B came to visit, or things like that. It's easy to take.
Yeah.
Aliens is a bit of a stretch for a lot of people, but I think everything ties in together. They've shown how everything sort of just
I believe
falls
that.
together.
I 100% believe that. I think it's
Yeah.
all connected. I don't know how, but it is.
Yes.
It just is.
I agree. Research is, in talking to so many people like yourself, you come together, and I've been in the field for, a couple of decades, and you start to connect the dots fairly easily. I think with cryptids, when you're talking about Dogman and Bigfoot, and you see this thing crawler going up there, and you come to the fact in your mind where you're like, wait a minute, these are physical. And I think this would hurt. So it's a whole other level of high strangeness.
Well, it's definitely high strangeness because, I got to tell you, I would have never thought in my lifetime that I'd ever be where I am right now. So, I never asked to do any of this or being involved in any of this. And, I've been really blessed to, in some ways, to see the things and be open minded as I have about them and experience the things, because I feel like I'm more prepared for just about anything. I mean, I really don't think there's a whole lot you can do that would shock me real bad anymore, because I think I've about seen it. But I'm sure there's other things that I haven't seen. My biggest fear, and I think that's my whole team's biggest journey here, is the biggest reason we do this in the land between the lakes, because I don't want to see grandma and grandpa go out to the woods and take two grandkids and camp in the middle of nowhere. And then next week we can't find them because they've been gone for 5 or 6 days. They just vanished. And, find a tent with a back tore out of it and something drug them out. And I do think that's happened there. I do 100% do think it's happened. I think we have some evidence that it's happened. But a lot of this proving it and everything else is a different story. But our main goal is to inform people and let them know that these things do exist. And if you're going to go into the area where they are, please try to be careful and use your head. Don't be out there by yourself. Carry a personal locator beacon with you. If you can, carry some type of weapon, if it's legal to do that. I can tell you right now, if I go into an area where these things are at, I'm just going to take a gamble. I'm not going in there without a weapon. So, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know if it'll hurt them anyway. People tell me you can shoot them and it won't hurt them. I don't know if that's true or not, but
Yeah.
I'd much rather have it and take that chance than not have it. So,
Yeah.
uh,
No, well,
at least it gives me a little security. But I think that people need to know that
there are
there's a
things
lot of
in them there woods.
there's
There
things in
woods.
them there woods, and you're exactly right. And if
Yeah.
you're counting on our government to take care of us, then please
Well,
rethink your
I'm
thoughts.
kind of wondering that if they're the cleanup crew, the things you don't hear about.
Could be, yeah, they could be. I mean, who knows? I don't know what all these things are. I know they're out there, but I
There's a
do know.
lot of acreage. It's easy to get lost in there. It's easy
Well, plus
to
the
disappear.
abilities these things have. Plus, because I do believe they can cloak or go interdimensional. I think it's the higher vibration they create. I've not seen one do that, no, but I have
Hmm.
seen one that I knew fairly well because I visited him quite a bit. I seen him go behind a large tree. He never came out. There was no horror for him to go, and
Hmm.
he just vanished. So
Hmm.
I think they have the ability. I don't know if all of them do, but I think some of them do anyway. And they have. How do they read what you're thinking? I mean, these are not.
Telepathy. Yeah.
It's amazing to me
It's highly
the,
advanced.
the intelligence that they have. It's just amazing.
Hmm.
And the worst part about it is if these creatures, the friendly ones, are able to do that. Think about what the bad ones are able to do,
Yeah.
and they're going to use that against you. So, and do I think that all these missing people in the parks were killed by Dogman or Bigfoot? No, I don't. I do
Hmm.
not think that at all. I think some of the cases
Hmm.
that could be a possible with, but there's
Yeah.
something else taking all these people. If you but per day Pilatus, if you look up Yosemite National Park,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
there's more people missing in Yosemite National Park than any place in the world. That's a big statement. There's a
That.
lot of people. So I don't know
Yeah.
how many are missing, but it's a lot of people. So, Land Between the Lakes has people I'm sure missing now. We don't know about it, but
Hmm.
and a lot of parks do. It's not just Land Between the Lakes, but
Exactly. It just seems to be one that gets a lot of attention. But I think when you get into the missing 411, exactly, the missing 411, there's people just dropping off in all the national parks that are all protected land.
it's really strange. Where I'm a huge follower of Dave Pilatus.
Yes.
Dave is not a close friend. I've met Dave several times and have a great respect for him. I think he
Yeah.
does a magnificent job and spends a lot of time coming up with the right answers. And I do believe he's 100% truthful on what he knows.
Yeah.
But when you have people missing in clusters
Yeah.
and they're just gone, and all you
Mhm.
find is their clothes folded up with a pair of shoes next to a creek bank.
Yeah.
What the world is going on? I mean, what is happening here? So
Yeah.
pretty crazy. It really is. It's that's why I tell people I used to go out in the woods by myself and stay 4 or 5 nights when I was first got into researching these creatures, and I would
Mm.
never tell anybody to do that now. Don't ever go out in the woods like that by yourself. I'm just lucky, but
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
single person, you got a lot better chance with two people than you do one. And
Mm.
I would always suggest that people, if you can, like I said, carry a personal beacon. Let somebody know where you're at, where you went in, and when you're coming back.
Mm.
And always have somebody with you in some type of weapon or some type of defense, along with provisions in case you get stuck out there. So
It's different times.
it is.
I grew up north. I'd be 8, 9 years old, out in the mountains, in the woods by myself in the north, and it's timber wolf not far from me. We just look at each other like that's a timber wolf. It's not like a dog man, but I'm 8. Okay, so it was a big deal. but I guess where I'll leave off is, do you think now, with so many more people infringing on their space, that they're just becoming maybe a little bit more hostile? Or because it's not like they're hiding and not wanting to be seen, like there are more and more eyewitnesses accounts. If
Well,
we're just putting them
I
out there.
think we can contribute a lot of that to
Yeah.
exactly their areas being encroached on by building homes and by
Yeah.
businesses, subdivisions, whatever. I'm sure that has a little bit to something to do to it, but now you also have so many people in the woods looking for them, and there's a lot of.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me how many people I see that are messaging our group or whatever. There's 4 or 5 people going out in the woods. It seems like every day, and some of them in the same areas. And the more people you have, the chances are that I've seen one. But on top of the fact that I do think there's more of these creatures now than when I first had my first encounter. I definitely believe there's a lot more of them. I've heard figures of maybe 4,000 or 5,000 in the U.S. That almost makes me laugh. I've heard that figures at several conferences, and I don't know the true answer, but that's funny to me because
That's a lot.
I believe there's probably 4,000 or 5,000 in Tennessee. So
yeah, that is some pretty big odds right there. So those who are going out and wanting to do this, have something to protect yourself and make sure people know where you are. Stay in contact. Satellite phone comes to mind. Might not be a bad idea.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. A personal beacon. That's what I'm calling
Yeah.
the phone. So
Yeah.
you just got to be careful when you go out there and be smart. But the best thing is to remember, especially, is be careful because there's stuff out there that you may not even believe when you see it.
The whole careful what you wish for, you just might get it as well. So you have a new venture coming up. Can I put up your advertising for it?
Yeah, go ahead.
For Too Real? Can I do that? Okay.
Sure, yeah.
I like to ask permission. I don't know if it was just because I was
No, you're
special and
welcome.
getting the inside scoop.
Anything I told you is fine. That's great.
There we have it. Woohoo! Look at that.
There it is again.
There it is again. Oh, this is wonderful. So tell us about this venture. I just love it.
Well, I'm looking real forward to it. Ryan's been such a good friend. Well, we've had a lot of technical issues. We seem like we have one every time we get started. So
yeah,
hopefully us two old guys can figure out how to do this eventually. So we're working on it. So we've been on a couple times with Daniel, my buddy Daniel Hamilton, and he's helped us out a whole lot. And we're about to get it put together. So it's a real honor to have one of my best friends, Ron Moorhead, be in our podcast together. It's called Two Real Cryptid Legends. And Ron came up with that name. That's the name he liked, Two Real Cryptid Legends. I don't know if I'm a real cryptid legend, but he is. But I sure am glad to be honored to be with him and get this thing started.
I'm excited for it. I can tell you that. So it was such a pleasure to have you on. You mentioned now that you have a conference that that you're going to next month, that people can come and see you there.
I've just about done all my conferences this year. I've been to a lot of them this year. Well, not a lot, but I've done quite a few this year. I was doing a whole lot more. This year I've slowed down some, and Ron has too.
Yeah.
My friend Martin has not been able to because he's been sick all year. He's missed 4 that he was supposed to be with me.
Right.
But he's had a real tough time, and I appreciate y'all keep Martin Groves in your prayers too. So, but I've got one coming up in Kentucky in November, and if I'm able to, I just got asked a couple days ago to come to one in North Carolina. I don't know all the details on those, but I will let everybody know when I find out more about them. But thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed being with you.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure. And thank you for all the information. It definitely, not a lot surprises me, and I am not at all skittish, but I have to say, I usually am pretty good at throwing my 2 cents worth, but I was more, I think, enthralled with everything you were talking about, because I'm just sort of tapping into that energy, thinking to myself, oh my God, these things do exist. And they're hostile. It's like,
I tell you, that some of these creatures are very hostile. They really are. And I've run into some Bigfoot that I think would really kill you and eat you. I really believe that. I run into some of the Blue Ridge Mountains back in the early 2000s, and those weren't friendly at all. And this is the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia. But there's, like I said, there's good ones and bad ones out there. You just got to be very careful what you're doing, and try to be smart.
Yeah.
Don't try to be better than you think you are.
Yeah.
So, and make
Yeah.
sure you got somebody with you. Don't go by yourself. So
Preferably somebody who knows what they're doing.
hopefully, yeah, you would hope so.
Yeah, I'd be calling you and Ron saying, okay.
Exactly. There
But
we go. Yeah,
but I do extend the offer if you make it up here. Like I said, we've got a lot of
we're
property up
hoping
here.
to get up there this fall.
Yeah.
Not too far from now. That's the hope. And
Yeah.
Ron and I are still talking about Ron and Martin Groves and I are still talking about going to Alaska to Port Chatham, and we may do that. So
Ooh.
that's one of our goals, and we're hoping to be able to do that.
Wow, that would be exciting. Well, you have a book coming up, and of course, you have to come back. I'm hoping when you write it, I would love to have, like I said, both you and Ron, and all three of you, Martin, to come on if you'd be willing, and
sure,
just
I'd be
talk
more
about your excursions and adventures. And
well, we're hoping to do some live shows too at different areas where we research. I'm hoping we can get that happening. So,
yeah,
we'd be more than happy to. I'm sure Ron would too. Ron's been on your show before, and he spoke highly of you.
yeah,
And
he's been on a couple of times. It's a lot of fun.
Martin doesn't do a lot of shows. He gets asked all the time, but he's real skeptical about doing them. So,
yeah,
but I'm sure I can probably twist his arm and get him on one. So,
well, he'd be among friends, So
oh yeah, yeah. He does a great job. Martin's a great speaker. He really is.
Yeah. Well, we will definitely set that up. I would love that. I can give you some dates. You can talk to the gents and see, what lines up and when it lines up. It's, I mean, I book up weeks ahead. So
Oh, I know you do. I'm sure you do. You have a great I appreciate you having me on.
Oh my God, no. Pleasure is mine. Believe me, I'm so grateful, and I thank you so very much. And to everybody in the chat room, thank you all for tuning in. I could see the comments, I could see the interaction. So I thank you for that. Next week on Beyond the Outer Realm, everybody, that's Tuesday afternoon. Samhain, the roots of Halloween with Luke Eastwood, all the way from Ireland. So gonna get some cool Irish stories in there. Also, Wednesday, Preston Dennett, Dolly Saffron joins us. One of, I think, Preston's books, We're Not From Around Here, out of this world discussion on stories in UFOs, ETs, but in graveyard visits. It is a thing, apparently. It is a thing. So Thursday, October bonus, another open mic, and we're going to be having an open discussion on exploring the age-old obsession with spirit communication, looking outside the realm of normal for answers. Gotta love those Victorians. They were really all about it. So everyone in Canada, it's Thanksgiving weekend. Have a terrific Thanksgiving weekend. Be safe, behave, and well, you know what I mean. Behave, be safe. I should just reword that. And we'll see you all on Tuesday. Thank you all. Good night.